Yes, I think that's probably all I can.
Okay. Thank you very much. Andy first.
Yeah, I love the idea of somebody teaching someone how to play the piano without knowing how to play the piano themselves. I don't know how students would sign up for that one, but it's a lovely kind of those pedagogical experiments. And I was thinking back to one or two I remember from the States. And the 60s, one of the six in my mind is where I've always wanted to try this out, where the lecturer walks into the lecture hall with some bananas on his head and just stands there, and that's the lecture. I think it's what Rousseau called negative education, and that's really the question that I wanted to ask. I wondered if Rancière hooks Jacques Rancière up with, I mean, to my way of thinking around that, kind of, following on the 18th century, the most radical sort of anti-educational theory comes out of Rousseau and Émile and notions of negative education. And so I was wondering about that, and also one of the things that Rousseau goes on about, physical differences as well as intellectual differences, if that comes up in Rancière as well, actually.
Yeah, he doesn't explicitly talk about the relationship between Jacques Rancière and Rousseau, I think, or at least not at any length.
Right.
And I suppose from a Jacquetiste perspective, Rousseau is still too guiding. Right. Still presumes the vastly superior intelligence of the teacher, and that's not acceptable.
Right. Not negative. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, presumably you have to sort of negate Rousseau entirely as a kind of source of any wisdom, presumably. So that therefore, I mean, I always think of Wittgenstein's rather good advice actually to his students, which was, if you want to be a good philosopher, become a car mechanic. Because, well, there are different interpretations of that, but one is you shouldn't sit around reading philosophy because it'll just, throw you out completely. But I wonder if that's a slight kind of Jacquetism in some sense, that you need to get away from the text, presumably.
I think, certainly in the movement of Le Maître Ignorant, in fact, it's the opposite, in the sense that one has to always go back to the text. And there is this movement by which, and this is one of the things that happens when the teacher is faced with students who say, I can't do that. I can't read French, or I can't read Télémaque. So you can say I can't. So don't say I can't. Say calypso, and so on and so on, and then say it again, say it again. And once you've said it all of these times, you can actually do what you said you can't do. So the text serves there. The text of Télémaque serves as a kind of, he describes it as closing off the possibility for escape. Students escape. So I think maybe by contrast, a sort of coming back to text. How quite that works when the experiment's radicalised, it's hard to know, actually. I suppose go back and do the scales again, or whatever it would be with the piano.
Thank you very much. Martin?
Yes. Chris, I wanted to ask something that picks up on Chris's question and Brooke's question, and because this is I don't know, I always feel, I have reservations about Rancière, but I always feel guilty about those reservations, because I find myself saying every time I criticise him along the lines that I'm about to go down, I find myself saying, but obviously, what he has given us is so much and so splendid, and it is, I think, but nonetheless. I think there is where the issue that Chris and Brooke are highlighting is something to do with a limit in his thinking, which may be a necessary limit in order for him to be able to do what he needs to do. And in that case, again, that would be fine, conceivably, but nonetheless, I think it is a limit. So there is a sense in which his Rancièrean equality is, as it were, not quite l'égalité de n'importe qui avec n'importe qui, in as much as there is a precondition for who gets to qualify as n'importe qui, and that precondition is is a declarative capacity. Exactly along the lines that you've been talking about. Now, as I say, partly that might be simply necessary in order to produce the account of political subjectivation that he wants and needs to produce, and that account is, I would happily say, sufficiently powerful for perhaps that to be a satisfactory, that to be an acceptable sacrifice, as it were. But I think specifically the way I wanted to frame it as a question for you was in terms of the way that you came in your paper. I wonder whether this means that, in a sense, he does have an equality of what? Yes, there is an equality of, and it's an equality of capacity. And it's now, this then gets, I've tied myself in knots trying to think about this while listening to you. Because there is, on the one hand, yes, you can see why, and none of us would want to dissent from this. You would want to say, we all have these capacities. And those who are described as being subhuman for lacking the logos, that description is abusive, because yes, they most certainly do possess this as a capacity. And the interest then is in seeing that articulated, or in making them articulated, raising them up from the marais, as it were. But there is, and again, that's good and necessary and important, and yes, absolutely, completely agree. But there's always going to be a problem in defining that humanity in terms of the possession of positive capabilities. And at that point, Rancière agrees with Aristotle. He just moves the dividing line further back, as it were. And one of the interesting things in Rancière then is that he's proposing this description at a historical moment which comes after forms of oppression defined precisely by their production of is this or is this not a human being, precisely because of the level of deprivation, the deprivation of positive capacity has become maximal, as it were. And it's in relation to that spectre, which is the spectre of no possibility of any kind of subjectivation whatsoever, then that seems to me to be a limit case that Rancière can't think. And that might be okay. That might be fine. That might be the necessary sacrifice in order for him to be able to do what he does. But it does, I think, as I say, I think it means that he does have a quality that is equally distributed a priori in his thinking, and it is precisely that possible access to declaration, I suppose. So I wonder what you, as I say, I always feel bad asking this as a question and having this as a thought, and precisely because it's a hyperbolic demand, yes. And like I say, part of me thinks I should just shut up and celebrate what he's done. But part of me reading, particularly those bits of La Mésentente, feels, well, yes but, yes but, yes but. There's always this sans part des sans part,
sure,
as it were.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's a very good question. I think it is a limit in his thinking. I don't necessarily see it as pernicious or as leading to pernicious consequences. I don't think. I don't think his is a thought which leads to those consequences. In fact, I think there are possibilities for solidarity within the thought that could be further elaborated. It would need to be further elaborated, and the questions seem that have suggested that. I mean, in terms of the distribution, does he have this equally distributed property or capacity, declarative capacity? I suppose yes.